I believe I've already covered the main points concerning the subjective side of the matter. If I sign the document I'm going to regain after years of being continually sick at my stomach, my self-esteem, my lost freedom, my honor, and perhaps even some regard among those close to me, I'll leave behind the insoluble dilemmas forced on me by the conflict between my concern for my position and my conscience. I'll be able to face with equanimity Annie, myself, and even that lad when he comes back. It'll cost me my job, though my job brings me no satisfaction. On the contrary, it brings me shame. Nevertheless, it does support me and my family a great deal better than if I were to become a night watchman. It's more than likely that my son won't be permitted to continue his studies. On the other hand, I'm sure he's going to have more respect for me that way than if his permission to study was bought by my refusal to sign the protest for Javerick. He happens to worship Javerick. As a matter of fact, he's crazy about him. Well, then, this is the subjective side of the matter. Now, how about the objective side? What happens when, among the signatures of a few well-known dissidents and a handful of Javerick's teenage friends, there suddenly crops up, to everybody's surprise and against all expectation, my signature, the signature of a man who hasn't been heard from regarding civic affairs for years? Well, what? Let's think about it. My co-signatories, as well as many of those who don't sign documents of this sort, but welcome my signature with pleasure to the closed circle of habitual signers whose signatures, by the way, are already beginning to lose their clout because they cost practically nothing. I mean, the people in question have long since lost all ways and means by which they could actually pay for their signatures, right? Well, this circle will be broken. A new name will appear, a name the value of which depends precisely on its previous absence, and, of course, I may add, on the high price paid for its appearance. So much for the objective plus of my prospective signature. Now, what about the authorities? My signature is going to surprise, annoy, upset them, for the very reasons will bring joy to the other signatories. I mean, because it'll make a breach in the barrier the authorities have been building around your lot for so long and with such effort. All right? Let's see about Javerick. Concerning his case, I very much doubt my participation would significantly influence its outcome. And if so, I'm afraid it's more than likely going to have a negative effect. The authorities will be anxious to prove they haven't been panicked. I want to show that a surprise of a sort can't make them lose their cool, which brings us to the consideration of what they're going to do to me. Surely my signature is bound to have much more significant influence on what happens in my case. No doubt they're going to punish me far more cruelly than you'd expect. The point being that my punishment will serve them as a warning signal to all those who might be tempted to follow my example in the future, choose freedom, and thus swell the ranks of the dissidents. You may be sure they'll want to teach them a lesson, show them what the score is, right? The thing is, well, let's face it, they're no longer worried at all that much about dissident activities within the confines of the established ghetto. In some respects, they even seem to prod them on here and there, but what they're really afraid of is any semblance of a crack in the fence around the ghetto. That's what really scared them. So they'll want to exorcise the bogey of a prospective epidemic of dissent by an exemplary punishment of myself. I want to nip it in the bud, that's it. The last question I've got to ask myself is this: what sort of a reaction to my signature can one expect among those who, in one way or another, have followed what you might call the path of accommodation? I mean, people who are or ought to be our main concern. Because I'm sure you will agree our hope for the future depends upon, above all, on whether or not it's possible to awake from their slumbers and to enlist them to take an active part in civic affairs. This is what really matters, isn't it? Well, I'm afraid that my signature is going to be received with absolute resentment by this crucial section of the populace.